let's try not to keep people too late. Who's back there today? Bobby, you ready to go? Let me give Ms. Smith the sheet when I walk back to my chair. Will be good. All right, we up? Okay. I call this meeting of the special meeting of the January 7th, of the PCSSD School Board, January 7th, 2025 to order. Ms. Smith, would you please call the roll?
Ward. Tate. Here. Smith, me. Potter. Here. Maynard. Here. Keller. Delaney.
Present. Okay, would you join us in the pledge? I pledge allegiance
To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay. So, Dr. Guest will not be here tonight. We're considering his employment, and under policy 2.1P, it says the superintendent will attend all board meetings except those considering his appointment. So that's the only reason that he's not here tonight. He'll be here for the 14th. And I'm going to move us, this isn't going to be one of those where we're in executive session all night, but I'm going to start us out there, and then we're going to come back and follow our agenda. But executive session has to come first. We're going to look at his contract, and then we're going to come back out. So with that, I'll make the motion. Pursuant to Arkansas law, I move we go into executive session for the purpose of discussing the employment of a public officer or employee. I've made the motion. Is there a second?
Second.
Okay. Ms. Potter has seconded. All in favor of moving to executive session to consider employment, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Okay. We'll be right back, and we'll announce any decisions. So let's go. Okay. We are back out of executive session, and we have action to take on Dr. Guess's interim contract proposal. I will take a motion on the interim contract proposal.
I move to approve Dr. Guess's interim contract.
Okay. Dr. Tate has made a motion to approve the interim contract. Is there a second?
Second.
Ms. Maynard has seconded. All in favor of approving Dr. Guess's interim superintendent contract, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, I have that 5-0. All right. Thank you, Jay.
Thank you all. You all have a good evening.
Thank you.
Okay, we're going to get into, it's under action items, but a lot of this isn't stuff we're going to take action on tonight. The first is a discussion of superintendent search firms. Discussion, no action. I can tell you that so far, per the directive of the board, I was to solicit superintendent search firms to come present to the board. I've talked with one, McPherson Jacobson, and I am about to talk to a second. It's Mr. Mike Poore, who's the former Little Rock superintendent, who's currently doing a superintendent search for the Jonesboro Public Schools. So I'm going to see if he's interested in coming. If he's not, I'm going to try to reach out to one of the national firms, possibly, well, I don't know. I think maybe HYA, but I'm not sure about that. My understanding is that we would like more than one, right? McPherson is locked in to come, but we would like at least one additional, right? Right?
I think so.
And I'll see if I can get Mr. Poore. Mr. Poore does more than searches. He can help us with some of the other stuff on our agenda as well if he's interested. That's my understanding. He can explain. I haven't talked to him yet. So with that, that's where we stand on search firms, and the idea here is that we would get some presentations started on the 14th to us, and then you'd be able to speak to those representatives in a public forum here and ask any questions. I don't think we would take action on the 14th. I think we would receive the presentations that we have, see what we wanted to do, and then schedule another meeting to take an action, like a special meeting or something. But the other reason I wanted to have this conversation is because we have enough time, I believe, to do all the elements of a proper superintendent search sufficiently. But anything we bog down on, or not even bog down, but over allocate time to, we'll subtract from the other elements. Because we want to have a superintendent in place, a permanent superintendent in place by July 1st. So that's something to keep in mind as we're looking at this. So I'll just use an example. If we want to hear from 6, 7, 8 firms, for example, we can. But we have time to hear from some. But if we want to hear from 8, if that's a priority, then it will probably subtract from, the time that it'll push the application period further out, and it would subtract possibly from the time that we had to do other things like do surveys of parents and staff and teachers and so on. So I'm just saying that if we move quickly but not in a rush, like I've seen some schools that lose their superintendent in February or March, and they still run a search for July 1st, but it is quite quick, and you almost can't give anything its proper attention. So it's possible to do them in 3 months. It's just really hard. And we have 6 essentially, but they'll explain more about what kind of a timeline would look like. But I'm just giving my opinion tonight, and then you're going to get to give your opinion, and then hopefully I can direct search firms to this conversation so it can help them prepare, because I can tell them what I think, would be good, but it might be better if everybody kind of spoke and gave ideas, because then they can watch it and see, maybe get an idea of what the board might want when they come to present to us. So that's the other reason to have it in this way is to get out any kind of things that you might be interested in hearing about from search firms, and that will give them an idea. With that, I did put on the agenda, it's just like a numbered bullets of And what I did is I took this from Fort Smith. Fort Smith is doing like an actual RFP. We've got a letter on our agenda from Mr. Beckett that explains we don't have to follow the procurement process for search firms. Fort Smith chose to follow that either because their policies required it or they just thought it would be the better way to handle it. But I took off their agenda a list of characteristics and things that they wanted to see in a search firm, and I wanted to use that as a basis to help you kind of say, I like this, I don't like this, yes, we want all of this, no, I don't want this, so on and so forth, and then I can show the search firms, because some of these search firms are going to be bidding for Fort Smith, and if they knew, some of these things that we wanted, it might be helpful, because Fort Smith has put some thought into theirs, and so I wanted to use it as sort of like a way to prompt discussion. So with that, I'll turn it over to the board and see what y'all have to say and ask questions.
So what we're discussing is what we'd like to see in a search firm?
Yeah, right, like what you, correct.
Well, for the last 2 years of the ASBA December training, I've sat through the superintendent search classes and how the process works, which what I did learn was that in early January, getting an interim is strategically best, so that for the next 6 months or for the end of the contract season, when the opening of all the superintendents go looking, this is the time frame for us to be searching. And in saying that, sitting through this last year, I did meet with, I took the class with Mike, what'd you say his last name, Poor, Mr. Poor? I took his class, and also I took the class with, and his was actually about finance, but I got to meet him in that class. And then I took the Jacobson,
McPherson Jacobson?
Mr. Williams, yes.
Dr. Williams.
Dr. Williams. Thank you. I took his class last year and this year, and learned that, we're making the right choices as a board going forward to allow a company to come in and do the search for us to bring us the best candidates. And I think that what I did like the most about all of that was how candidates coming in state who already know our regions, our culture, seeing that to me seemed like a positive. Hi, Miss Ward. And so, do you bring me a Happy Meal?
I know, right?
So that being said, with the search committee choosing a company that probably primarily is from Arkansas, seemed to be more of a positive focus, because they already know the people in the superintendent positions or the licensures, and so clearly there's in-state potential for hiring a company, not a national but a local. And for me, that's going to be a positive to look at the locals. I don't know how many there are in Arkansas, but I've at least met now at this point two people's companies.
So just to remind everybody, we voted last time that the search would be open to internal and external candidates.
Right.
And that there's going to be no restrictions, essentially, who can apply.
No, I'm just saying the search company, being a local company,
Okay.
will have the ability to know what we need, versus somebody from Massachusetts trying to decide what Arkansas should have in our 4 different high school communities.
Is McPherson Jacobson local?
Well, it's a national company, but they have local people here, like my understanding, and he can explain it better, is they have 5 or 6 agents that are inside of Arkansas, whereas some of the national ones may not have a person, but I'll leave it, if we get a national person to talk to us, they can explain, but that's my understanding, is McPherson has like a pretty large Arkansas network.
I didn't realize they were national by name. I assumed they were local, so that's
No.
my
No, McPherson,
misunderstanding.
McPherson they have a,
I felt like it was all local, right?
they have a home office,
Uh-huh.
and then,
Well, Bobby Lester, who was our previous superintendent, who was my superintendent my whole childhood, he used to help with them, from what I understood. And I like the idea of somebody who knows what we need and what works for us. That if he were available, I wouldn't hate it for Mr. Lester to be around.
Are these companies specific to superintendents? They just search for superintendents?
they'll also search, like, if you have, like, a deputy superintendent or something, or a
But it's
business.
school functioning, I mean, they're not like searching for
No,
CEOs or.
some
CFOs.
will veer into they call themselves like executive search committees.
Yeah,
So they will look for all manner of executives. So some do more than just superintendents.
I would prefer to have one who at least has an office in Arkansas, just because I feel like if they do, then they're more likely to be connected within the state. And I would prefer either an internal candidate or someone from within the state of Arkansas who knows what's going on legislatively, specifically with LEARNs, and any new legislation that comes out in the legislative session that's about to start. And I think people within the state are probably better informed about those things.
Okay. So did anybody see anything on this example that I gave for discussion only that came from Fort Smith that, Fort Smith, they reference external candidates and internal candidates.
Where was that,
Fort Smith?
see that.
the example?
Oh, it's underneath, I see.
What do you mean?
It's
I didn't see
letter
it.
from Jay.
It's after the letter.
Oh, you gotta
from
go past the
Jay.
letter from Jay.
Yeah,
On the same attachment?
Yeah.
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 Oh, okay, I didn't
Yeah.
realize that's what you were.
Yeah,
talking
so it shows like a scope of services and then what you want to see in a proposal from the company. It was an example that Fort Smith is asking for from their companies. And, I pulled that out of a much larger RFP that they're doing.
Where did you pull that from? It's on that.
Yeah.
I think
That looks good. I like the idea of getting samples of how they advertise and that sort of thing, just to kind of see what their system is.
Go to her.
Do we happen to know what this number 6 is under scope of services that says
Yeah.
coordinate and facilitate the interview process with consultant in attendance if desired by the board? Do you have any idea what that means?
Consultant in attendance
you know what I'm saying.
is
I'll
more
have it.
relevant for out-of-state candidates or out-of-state firms because
Oh, no, I can
they
find
have
that.
to fly in a consultant to be in attendance with you at every single meeting you have. So if you want a consultant in attendance at every single meeting for an out-of-state firm, it will add to your expenses because the way they're going to have to explain this, but my understanding is that the way that search firms cost is there's like a core fee that's paid to the search firm, and then they bill you for all the expenses related. So like, if you wanted to advertise more than the minimum, which I think we would, then they just charge you for what it costs to advertise in this magazine or whatever. If you wanted to do a more robust survey of parents or something like that, they might charge you extra than what came with so I think, and everyone's going to be a little different, but there's going to be a core fee and then travel. So like if you brought in finalists, like if you wanted to bring in 5 finalists, your expenses for the travel to bring 5 finalists in if they're out of state would be more than if there was 3 or whatever. So they're going to bill you for those costs. And in fact, the finalists might just give you their travel bills directly to the district to pay. So that's probably why when they say consultant in attendance, that's relevant because an out-of-state company that doesn't have somebody in state that could just drive here might be a higher cost. That's my understanding.
So before you get to the finalist process, let's say you had 20 people to interview, you could theoretically do a Zoom if they were not local or, yeah.
Yes, correct. Or the consultant could be, Zoom in too as well. And also consultant can't come into the executive session anyway in this situation because in Arkansas, consultants aren't allowed in executive session. And then if you want like more extensive background checks, for example, like some firms will say, well, we'll do background checks on your finalists, but if you wanted background checks on your semifinalists, they might charge you more. I think that's what we're gonna find.
You may not know the answer to this question, but as we've seen before with our waiver process, we've had people who've passed an in-state background check, but then when a more extensive one has been done, they've had to request a waiver. So do you know if we would be able to ask for the level of background search, or if it would be a nationwide one, and how fast would we get it back?
I think they'll have to explain what they use. I don't know. I just don't know. Each one might do it differently, but I think they would be highly motivated to not allow a finalist or somebody we selected to fail a background check. That would pretty much be a 1-star, 1 out of 10 do not use type situation if that ever happened. But we have seen, some search firms, the vetting process is important, okay, because some will pour over the candidates, and others will just take what they say. So like we had in the last superintendent search we did, we had somebody that represented that they could get a license in Arkansas, and then it turned out later that they could not. And then, when it came out, why or whatever, I think they said something to the extent of, well, the candidate got confused. Well, okay, so we should probably check on that, how do you do your checking? Is it trust it but not verify, or is it trust and verify?
It sounds like in a situation like that, it would be better for us to have, again, either an internal candidate or an in-state candidate who is familiar with the licensing process in our state. I would definitely prefer to have one of those.
Well, if you use in-state, and in-state, people get wrapped around the axle of in-state because they have relationships or, affiliations, or even just advertise with the ASBA and the AAEA, for example, and out-of-state has that sort of, oh, they're not beholden to any whatever, so in-state people might know the candidates better if we're getting in-state candidates. But there are a lot of really good firms, and for bigger districts, a lot of them just use the national firms, and it seems to work out, fairly well. So,
Yeah, I don't think we should limit it. I mean, you have to interview people who are interested and see what you think.
yeah. So on the proposal content, we're going to want surveys for parents and staff, and focus groups for staff, right? Like, these are the type of things we're going to want there to be, avenues for everyone to have input into what they want in a superintendent, right? And I would want it to be robust as we could get it without, blowing up the timeline. So that's going to be something too that we want to see, right? Is that type of input from the various constituencies.
I love the idea of letting the students and the teachers and the staff and the classifieds all have input on what they'd like.
Yeah. Some can even do, I don't know if we'll have time. They'll have to make a timeline for us, because even though the new superintendent might start on 7/1, you can't hire him on 6/30, And realistically, most of these superintendents, if they currently have a job somewhere, have clauses in their contract that say they have to give their boards 60 or 30 days notice. So if you're hiring a superintendent in June, you may not be able to get them to start on July 1st. So when we settle on a consultant to use, they're going to show us a timeline, and then we're going to say, well, why can't we do this? Well, you don't have enough time. That could be the situation, or you just have to push some things back. But as we sit here not knowing that, we can dream, and the idea here is to get as much input as we can, because we want a legitimate process that doesn't exclude anyone, you know, isn't rigged.
Well, we're gonna have to do parent input at the feeders, not all in one, I don't think.
Right, or Zoom meetings or something, you know, I don't know. I'll be honest, when we did this last time, I went to the Robinson meeting and there were 5 people there. You know, and that's 40,000 people, warm bodies and voters or whatever out there, and nobody came. So, I mean, that may be different this time, but we are post-COVID now. Zoom and everything is a lot more prevalent, but for certain communities. But others, I would certainly think we're gonna need some face-to-face meetings.
I just meant I don't wanna, I think all 4 feeders would need something versus just to make sure everybody's involved.
That is important to verbalize here, if you have like an out-of-state firm that's watching this right now, is we've got 4 or 5 different communities that are inside of this district. So it's kind of like a Lawton, Virginia or something. I don't know. There's these bigger districts that you can't just hold one meeting and everybody shows up. It's not like the Little Rock School District, or it's not like a single community district. So when we talk about the 4 feeder patterns, we've got 4 essentially communities or areas that have their own high schools that feed up, and they're pretty far away from each other. Like, you know, I live 40 miles away from Sherwood, but here we are all in the central office, but I don't know if I want to drag everybody out to the central office and do one meeting, right?
I think utilizing the auditoriums at the schools, we have 4 high schools, auditoriums, set up 4 dates, and do it from that way.
Well, yeah, I mean, and yes, if we need a full auditorium, that would be right. In this situation, 5 people showed up and they did it in the Robinson Library, and it was way too big. So I don't know, but one thing the consultants are going to have to know as they're watching this, if they're watching this to make their presentations, is you're probably going to need more than the minimum meetings, because for a district this size, because you're going to have to do everything 4 times probably for each feeder.
Combo, they could have an in-person with a Zoom option where if they couldn't make it, they could hop
Yeah.
on Zoom.
Worst case, we invite everyone to one gym. The most neutral would probably be Maumelle.
Well, hopefully it doesn't come to that, just to save some money, you know. But it's important that anybody watching this that might make a proposal understands that your expenses are probably going to be higher on the in-person meetings, because of for a district this size. You would think, well, I could get away with this on a 11,000 student district, 12,000 student district. Well, no, not in this case.
I like the idea of the in-person meetings, but also just speaking from the perspective of a single-parent household, there are lots of parents out there that may want income, may want input, but are working 2 jobs, or they work in the evenings or whatever. So I think in addition to the in-person meetings, it would be really good to have some sort of survey that goes out to all parents in the district and all staff in the district, and maybe students from like 9th to 11th grade or whatever, because seniors will be graduated by the time the new superintendent gets here, just to give them an opportunity. I'm sure with AI, there's a way to search for keywords and responses and that kind of thing to get a general idea, but I would like to see some sort of a survey for people who either don't have the technology to log into Zoom and or can't physically make it to a meeting.
We need surveys even for the people that come to the meetings, you know, so that because a survey is going to be like a quantifiable way to ball everything up. One thing I would say though is that hopefully we can get surveys that, well, I don't know, that wouldn't allow like one person to spam 10 answers, you know, but maybe it's not possible. I don't know, but robust surveys that are, you know, I think I've seen like a proposals that use like K-12 Insights or something, that company that does things. So it would probably be something that the search firm would provide to us, but we would have to publicize it out, and then make sure that different surveys go to different groups of people. Support staff should get a different survey than classroom teachers, should get a different survey than building administrators and district level administrators and parents and students. That way, we can weight the different categories, because like what we'll find is there may be a whole lot of participation in one group and a small participation in another group, but that small participation maybe still be representative of a much larger group, okay? And so if you have a way to distinguish between the groups so that it doesn't all get amalgamated together into a ball, and you can't break it apart and understand the different perspectives of the different constituents.
Could we do surveys like that before we start giving them the criteria that we're looking for? Maybe ask the parents and the staff what they would like to see in a superintendent going forward?
You can, but it's gonna delay your, yes, that would be in a full, like if you had like 9 months or whatever, that's how you would do it, is you would almost double survey them. You would double survey
Why
them.
couldn't we do it now before we decide on a search firm? And
Well,
give them
because the search
criteria?
firm's gonna do it. Because they're gonna
We can-
help us develop the list of criteria that we want. That's gonna be part of, like, when we settle on a search firm, what they did under the last search firm is the search firm came here and helped them make the criteria that they wanted in a superintendent. So you can. He'll just, whoever, he, she, whoever, the representative will just have to explain what that means to your timeline. It's not impossible. It's just they're going to sit here and say, how do you want to structure this? And then you can either, you're going to have to work back from a date, like when do you, one of the ways that they did it in the past was, is they say, do you want to have a superintendent before spring break selected or after spring break? And, probably in our case, it might be after spring break, and like early April or something like that, you'll be talking to finalists.
I guess what I'm saying is, why is there nobody in the district that could create a survey that's very open-ended, just asking parents for input on what qualities they'd like to see in a superintendent, so that we have an idea of what our communities are thinking?
Well, they probably could. It's just that I would feel more comfortable if we had an advisor that was telling us what to do, and making sure we didn't make a mistake or weren't jumping out a line or whatever. I would feel more comfortable that way first, is getting the search firm under and then letting them help us figure that out. I know we're trying to save time, but we could just be doubling our work if we forget something because we don't know what we're doing.
So in the January 14th meeting, we should have two
Hopefully.
search firms, hopefully.
At least two, possibly more, but at least one for sure, and I'm trying to get a second one, and I may try to get a third one, based off of letting them watch this meeting and see if they feel comfortable making a proposal. Because some search firms don't want to make a proposal if they feel like the other firm, if the other firm is doing something different or whatever, so they may look at it and say, well, there's not enough time, or I don't know what. But they might want to do it on the 21st or another meeting day. I don't know. But I'm going to try. I'm going to try to get, you're going to have at least one firm here, hopefully two talking to you, maybe more. But I don't think that we would make a decision on the 14th. I think it would have to be at another meeting. But you can certainly make a decision if you are ready to hear from more, or you want to stop. Anything else on this? This will be to be continued until the 14th. There should be at least one person that's coming to present on behalf of a firm, possibly more. When I know more, I'll let you know, but I would plan for that to be on the agenda the 14th. And this is what happened in 2018, is the board then, they heard from two search firms on different nights. They heard from McPherson Jacobson, and then they heard from Ray and Associates, and then on a third night, they voted on which one to take. They took two. They heard from two. You can hear from more, but in 2018, they did two. Okay. All right. Well, let's stop with this one and switch over to the discussion of the review of the 2019 mission statement. I just put this on here because we have board members that may never have seen this before. There's nothing wrong with the mission statement. I'm just saying that as part of, selecting a new superintendent, you may also want to consider getting somebody to help you, or the search firm that you select help you revise or change anything with respect to the mission statement. So I put that on there too, since we're looking at search firms. You could also consider doing something with the mission statement, not tonight, but you could have a discussion about, what you thought you wanted to do or how you wanted to go about thinking about the mission statement. And then also, we're just going to ball these two up together. The superintendent's evaluation rubric, this has been something that we've talked about before that has not been changed since it was adopted in 2018, and we've been using it faithfully. But this may also be a time to talk about what we want to do with the evaluation rubric, and it may be nothing, but those were two things that seemed like they paired together that I wanted to put before you for discussion and not action tonight.
Does the superintendent have input on the evaluation, like what criteria is on it, or was this one that the board did?
So the board made this evaluation after Dr. McNulty was hired, and I don't know who made it, but ultimately the board voted on it and approved it after talking with Dr. McNulty. So it's something that doesn't have to be done, but it's probably would be a good idea to, even if you had a rubric or an evaluation before you hired a superintendent, that you would still need to get the superintendent's feedback on it.
When were they done? What month?
What month?
Yeah, the evaluation.
Well, at one time we were doing evaluations in January and February, and then one time one came in May, and then the next one came in October. And so, but generally, there's no law that says when they're done. But in the January, February, March timeline, I think is when a lot of boards will evaluate their superintendent, because when the law allowed for November elections, a lot of people complained, and school people complained, because it would cause a new board member to come in December, and then the first thing they did in January was evaluate the superintendent. That was a situation that I came into in 2019. Is I was elected, my first meeting was December, and then in January I was back in executive session evaluating the superintendent for the first time. But I would say January, February is the answer to your question, but not required by law. I mean, evaluation is required by law, but not the time.
I don't think this mission statement's the same one that's on the website.
Yeah, I'd like to change that personally.
Well, this was what you have in front of you, the one pager with the highlighted part was what was approved by the board. I mean, I don't know. I'm sure what's on the website is substantially similar or came from this, because this was what was approved by the board. It's a fuller document essentially, because it has the mission statement, the core belief statement, the about us, and so on. This I'm bringing you things that were all approved by the board, like the evaluation document was approved by the board, and this document was on the agenda. This was the one at the first meeting that I ever had. This document was on in December of 2019.
So the statement that's on the website was not approved by the board?
I don't know. No, the administration is allowed to manage the communication and stuff like that. I don't know what's on the website. This didn't direct them to put it on the website. It essentially was a document that the board approved that was the mission statement.
So this is up for evaluation is what you're saying, right?
The board can do whatever it wants. It approved it originally. It can keep it. It can change it later. It can get a new one. It can start a process to get a new one. It can take no action, whatever. This thing was approved by the board, and generally, I'm just bringing you back stuff that you might want to look at as part of a process.
Can we make a motion at the meeting next week to put these on the agenda for like the October, November meeting to revisit both of them once we hopefully have a superintendent in place?
Yeah, or we could just do it in October,
I mean, just as a reminder, I didn't know if we needed to put it on the,
Do we have like a work session to get that done?
Well, you don't have to take any action. You know, you don't have to make a motion. You don't have to do anything, as long as you remember it and have it and know whether or
I
not
just
you.
hope we have a superintendent in place by then. I'd like input.
Okay. So you would rather leave it in place, leave everything alone until the superintendent's here?
Yeah.
Okay. So this document stays as a board-approved document in place until the superintendent, and then we just remember and bring it up then.
I like to change it now, personally.
I think it would be good to look over it and just maybe update some things.
Right.
I don't know what I would want to update. I just probably need a little bit more time, but I think it would be fine to revisit it maybe like in February, just so that we all have about a month, a little over a month to look at it, see what we might want to revise, remove, update, whatever.
I mean, even if we approved a new mission statement, it doesn't prevent the new superintendent from bringing a new one and proposing it, so.
Well, let me say this, is a lot of boards, Jonesboro is doing this now, they use a consultant to help them because, and not just come up with it on their own, like, through a process where people are taught, and this may be something too that you want to get input on from the public, okay? Is they have somebody that helps them. The board in 2017, after Dr. Guest was let go, I remember this, I was at ASBA in the audience. They held a meeting there where they did they tried to start a process to create a mission vision. I remember that meeting, and then they said that they were going to have a follow-up meeting to do more, and it never happened. So, but they were there was a person there that was helping them, talking them through things. That may be something too, like I think Mr. Poor can help with this type of stuff, so he may be able to just talk about what he can do in this regard, or what consultants can do in generally to help boards as they do their goal setting and their mission statement stuff and all of that.
So if we don't decide to use him for the search firm, would that be something that we could use him for?
Yeah, or I mean, I didn't bring Mike Poor to do that. He may not even come, I'm still trying to get him to come. But he could, my understanding is, help boards, or somebody like him could help boards develop those things. And then we could go off on that track too, separate from the search firm. Search firms will also help you do this type of stuff. They charge extra for it, but they can help you do that as well. And I think we might hear from some search firms that say they do that stuff.
Just for reference, the one that's on the page is Pulaski County Special School District aims to serve all stakeholders through rigorous college and career readiness instructional strategies.
Well, we can get some clarification on whether what that is, and if it even needed to match what was said there, or if something changed. I don't know.
Okay.
Board approved document is what we have in front of us, though.
Does the ASBA have templates for this type of thing?
I don't know. I could ask. They do know consultants and stuff that'll help if you want that. Okay, so do we just want to leave this alone? I mean, and hear from the search firms and stuff, and see what they say about. You could even ask them how do boards that want to update their goals, because we don't have goals as a board. We do not have goals as a board. Those were never created explicitly. Okay, and so these are type of things that other school boards do, like Little Rock, North Little Rock. They have goals. They brought in people and helped them make goals, and then they check yearly or quarterly or whatever to see what their progress is towards their goals. So I didn't mean to pick on the mission statement, but it's basically part of a whole process of things that if you actually go compare this board to other boards, we don't have certain things that a lot of boards our size do. Goals that are brought up and checked on, and so on and so forth. And we can make them ourselves, but a lot of the bigger districts, they'll get some help to facilitate those processes.
So we can just put this out there as maybe a future workshop planning.
Yeah.
Okay.
Mission statement was never in any danger of getting changed tonight, but it's something that I wanted everybody to be aware of Also be aware of the fact that we don't have goals. We do not have goals as explicitly as a board that are in policy or anywhere. Okay, so these are the type of things that if you want these, we're gonna need to get them, and they can pair with the new superintendent. Because it's really hard to hold the superintendent accountable, because what a board should be doing is setting goals and then enabling their superintendent to help them achieve them.
And the evaluation rubric could be relative to
Yes,
that.
right. You need your goals in your evaluation rubric, and if you look at our evaluation rubric, there was never explicitly goals. I mean, it's not fair to say that there were no goals, but it was clear, starting out that we wanted Avid implemented, we wanted the Big Rocks implemented, we wanted out a DSEG and everything. So when I say there weren't goals, they weren't written down and held out, and then we looked at them and reminded them. But people were working towards goals, but there was never that conversation about goals that a lot of boards have. And that's the board's fault, I think, if and no one else's other than. If you believe that we should have had goals. Okay. With that, there's only one item left before we get down to the comments. And it's, what I have on here is resignation acceptance. Mr. Beckett advised me that, well, first of all, we received Dr. McNulty's resignation letter pursuant to the separation agreement. And so Mr. Beckett advised me that we needed to put that on the agenda and accept it. So I will take a motion to accept the resignation.
I make a motion, we accept the resignation.
Okay, Ms. Maynard has made a motion to accept the resignation. Is there a second?
Second.
Okay. All right, Ms. Potter has seconded. All in favor of accepting Dr. McNulty's resignation, say aye. Aye. Opposed? Okay. All right, that brings us down to comments from the board. I'll just say that we got the meeting on the 14th. And depending on what happens there, we may need a special meeting to come back and hear from another search firm or to take action on the search firm. So since I have y'all here, if we needed a special meeting in January, a short special meeting in January to hear from any more search firms or take action on search firms, what is availability for that?
I'm not available the 20th.
Okay,
I'm not the 21st.
okay. Okay, we're closed on the 20th. Don't want to do weekends. 6:30 is not a new normal. I'll just tell you that because we were having these special meetings, I picked 6:30 because I thought it might be better. I didn't know. I think we would get back to something in the 6 to 5:30 range, but it doesn't have to be. But do I just pick a day that's not the 20th or the 21st? Does anyone have a preference?
Well,
I'm good.
can we wait till Tuesday when we know if we want to come back and have a meeting or not?
Yeah, we can, but
Okay.
I guess then, just be mindful that this happened to when the board had an interim superintendent, Dr. Warren, and it was trying to get a permanent. You can see this in the minutes, is that the number of special meetings exploded because you've got to meet with your search firm and you don't want to just be doing it on a monthly cycle. Got to go quicker than that. And then also when you get to the end at the interview process, you're going to be coming in during the day. Okay, so like you'll be interviewing with candidates in the afternoon. Okay, because you're not going to interview them at night. You could, but what happened last time is they were interviewed during the day. Okay, so that might mean when we get to that scheduling, might have to take off from work or whatever if you want to talk to candidates. Or we can do them all in the evening. I don't know. But that happened in the past. So you're going to see an explosion in special meetings. And by explosion, I mean could be 3, could be 4 a month. Okay, or well, 3 plus the regular meeting.
right in the 23rd, so I don't have to miss church.
So is that Thursday?
Mhm.
Well, Mr. Keller can't ever make Thursdays.
Oh,
I mean, we could,
I
but
guess I could tell God that it's Keller's fault I didn't go to church.
No, let's just wait till Tuesday and look at it then,
okay.
because he may not even have that Thursday schedule anymore for all we know.
Well, I think he did last time because that's why he had to leave.
Oh.
I have a question on the meeting the special meeting on January 2nd. Why was it such a secret about what we were gonna meet about? But then, when I get here, Jerry Guest, Linda Remley is sitting in the audience. So how is it that they knew what the meeting was gonna be about, but the board member, well, I didn't know?
You left the executive session in December. The executive session lasted an hour, and
You walked
but
out.
you weren't there.
I'm talking to him. You don't have to,
I'm answering.
I don't need no amen corner. Go ahead.
So I think one of the reasons, if anybody understood anything about the second, it happened in a forum that we can't talk about here publicly. Because executive session, you know the rules on executive session, right?
Right, I know the rules.
And you weren't there.
Okay. I didn't stay for that executive session, but, okay, so you're saying that you were open to the text that I got, that I received from the superintendent was about this special meeting and was not supposed to, let me see.
It said you're supposed to refer all questions and complaints to the board president.
Right.
Yeah.
And I don't talk to you on the regular like that.
I'd love to. But, by the way, we can start. Would you like that?
But however, even in me sending an email, I still didn't get answered back till like 2 days later.
Yeah, I answered you about 6 hours before the meeting.
Okay, so that's what I'm saying. So I don't get penalized because I left a meeting as far as y'all sitting back there talking about, what you like. Well, okay, I didn't say about what it was about.
Yeah, right,
but
right.
in the same token, I should have got the information that, at least to tell me, a phone call or something to tell me what I was gonna be walking into, instead of like it was a surprise party, but the guest was here, but I didn't even know what the party was for.
Dr. Guest was here because I asked him to come.
Okay.
So there's your answer
So
on
y'all
that.
talk on the regular. Okay.
So, but everybody that stayed in executive session the full amount of time would have understood clearly what was going to happen or could happen, okay? And so that's what I'll say.
Okay, so y'all had made a decision. Okay.
No, we did not make a decision. That I had tasks to complete.
Okay. All right.
That's,
Dr. Guest was not here when we went into executive session on January 2nd.
yeah, but
Okay,
we were
so
doing
who
two
was that
things.
sitting out there?
we were
I mean,
doing
he
two
wasn't
things.
here when I walked into executive session, but you were late.
Okay, so he showed up.
We were already in there. He was not here when I walked in. I
Okay,
didn't
the
see him
point that
until
he
we
was
walked
here.
out.
He was here though.
Okay. So the key to this whole thing, all right, without getting into specifics, is the December 10th executive session. There were secret meetings, okay? Legal secret meetings that happened. They're called executive session, and it happened at a publicly called meeting pursuant to Arkansas law. So information happened in a secret meeting on December the 10th, okay? That the board was here for, and some didn't stay the whole time. So
Yeah,
that's the source of the confusion, okay?
No,
It is.
because you didn't make a date. You didn't make a date then.
So,
Now, December the 10th, you didn't have a date in mind for your special meeting.
no, I didn't know it would be January the 2nd. I agree with that.
Thank you.
I did not know that it would be January the 2nd
But
because
you saying if I'd have stayed, I would have known that it was
you,
gonna be a date.
you would have known something was gonna happen. You would have.
Okay,
You wouldn't have known January 2nd, but you absolutely would have known something was going to happen.
okay.
because 45 minutes is a long time to figure out when something's gonna happen.
Okay.
And you weren't there for that. But in the process, I think this is obvious, and over December, the holidays, a separation agreement was negotiated between me and Dr. McNulty.
Okay.
And it required board approval, and it needed to happen before school came back, which
Oh.
was the 3rd, okay? The 3rd was a flex day. So the 2nd was literally the last day that we could have gotten everything done, and I was getting papers that day. Okay, we still don't have a proper signature page yet, I don't believe, on one of the pages of the Dr. McNulty's attorney. So the 2nd was the last day it could have happened, and I believe anybody in the 10th would have understood if a special meeting happened, why it was gonna be happening, because I wouldn't have called it on the 2nd to any inconvenience to anybody if there wasn't a specifically good reason to do so. And also, Ms. Ward, I'm sorry. All right. Because I probably could have handled it better. I probably could have. With
But
that,
also,
go ahead.
Also, your statement about, that you negotiated, his attorney contacted you, right? He had an
No,
attorney?
no, no,
Okay.
no.
'Cause it was through the attorneys, 'cause,
Everything was through the attorneys.
right.
Everything was through the attorneys. Okay, but that's not true. That's not true that his
Oh.
attorney contacted me. Okay, with
Okay, yeah,
that,
that-
I will take a motion to adjourn.
I'll make a motion.
Ms. Maynard has made a motion to adjourn. Is there a second?
Second?
Ms. Potter has seconded. All in favor of adjourning, say aye. Aye. Opposed? Okay. We are adjourned.